Hello there, meandidraws here. Today I want to talk about my current art process, both digital and tradigital. I will explain what tradigital means very soon, but I think it's really important as an artist to have a structure process where you know a step-by-step way to get to the final point of your illustration. It can save up so much time and also make you a more efficient artist. That being said, it is an ever-changing thing, and if you do want to evolve as an artist, you do want to change things from time to time and try out new things. And I also do not recommend you to copy my process 100%. I do want you to take this video as an inspiration and build your own process, something that is more authentic to you and also more convenient to you and more of your own thing, So what do I mean by tradigital? I mean mixing traditional art and digital art and combining them together. In this case, since I really love drawing with fine liners in my sketchbook, I find it more cozy schmozy. I find that the line quality can be actually better in the sketchbook and faster. And that actually does save me some time because I don't have to redo all the line work that I did on the paper. I can just scan the line work that I did on the paper and then just put it on the digital version and just have it as a line work layer on the digital version. And I will show you how. So my digital process looks like this and my tradigital process looks like this. As you can see, it's kind of similar, but depending on what mood I am in, depending on what I want to do, I can use both, And in this video, I will cover the Procreate version of the workflow, but I fundamentally believe that it can be done in any software like Photoshop, Clip Studio, Paint, and other ones, You just need to do a little bit of workaround, or maybe some of the methods will be way easier to achieve in these programs compared to Procreate. Alright, so I will start with the digital process first and then move on to tradigital. So as far as digital brushes go, I actually use the 6B pencil, but I have it more enlarged. You can do it in the brush settings. And sometimes I just use the soft brush, and I will explain how I use the soft brush. It's an airbrush. I do use some other brushes from time to time, but it's not part of my process, I would say. And I think that using a brush as a crutch is really not good. I think that before doing something with a complex brush, you should learn how to do it with a simple round brush. A lot of beginners ask what kind of brush more experienced artists use. I think it's kind of a meme in the art community because it is almost never about the particular brush, but it's almost always about art fundamentals and experience. Now, if you're creating a design from the scratch, I actually recommend you to do some thumbnailing and some design iterations. For this particular phase, try to ask a question, what if? It is a really good question because it can help you come up with cool designs when you iterate. Now, 6 thumbnails for a design is usually enough, but it always depends on the artist. I like 6 because it looks kind of cool on the horizontal 16:90 aspect ratio. I also want to mention that in this particular early design phase, you do want to strive for very big changes and not just copy the same thumbnail and then just doing small changes on it. So basically this is the most important part of your whole drawing, I would say, because in this phase you actually figure out the fundamental parts of your design. Once you have the rough sketch, you can actually start refining it. Now, in the previous phase, it's actually really important to focus on the big proportions, as I said previously. Now, in the refinement phase, you actually want to pick the most favorite one of all 6 or whatever number it is, it doesn't matter. And now you want to go from the big proportions to more tertiary details. So try to figure out what smaller details you want to add to your drawing, and this will make your drawing more believable. Also, it is a really good rule of thumb to actually add most of the details to 30% of your drawing and leave the 70% of your drawing a little less detailed. What this is going to do is create a focal point. Now, if you're struggling in these first beginning phases and in the whole drawing actually, your fundamentals are probably not up to snuff, my friend. And I think that there's no better online art learning program than ArtWad that can improve your fundamentals. Let's talk about it. I want to quickly interrupt this video and talk about ArtWad. I think it's the best online art program that there is from my personal experience. Well, why? Because I've been a student for almost 3 years now, and I think that the results speak for themselves. They got everything. They got courses, they got WADs, which are fun art workouts, they got daily puzzles, they got classrooms, and they have been creating a new roadmap feature, which is super awesome, and let me tell you about it. I've never seen anything like this ever done before with art learning. With this learning, art almost feels like a video game where everything is gamified. You watch the videos, you do these little puzzles and you see how you did because there are answers to every puzzle. You gain experience points, you level up your spatial awareness skills, and yeah, you basically level up your skills as you would level up your character in a World of Warcraft or whatever. And they got a really cool Discord community where I actually lurk all the time, and you can tag me there and just let's have a conversation. Now, Antonio and his team has been kind enough to offer me a partnership and give me an affiliate link. And that affiliate link is special, guys, because it gives you a special discount on the monthly and the quarterly plans that you can't really get anywhere else. So yeah, if you want to support me and also get a better deal, you can use my affiliate link. I will pin it in the comment section as a first comment. And without any further ado, let's jump back into the video. Alright, so once I'm done with the refinement of the sketch, I move on to adding the line work. Same brush, but different mindset. Instead of being super rough and doing a lot of searching rough lines, I move on to doing a more clean but accurate lines. But the very important thing is not to lose speed of your strokes. It is a really good idea to actually overshoot some of the lines while maintaining the speed, and then later take the eraser and delete it, the parts that you don't need. Sometimes I actually use the smoothing feature in the Procreate where you actually draw a line and then hold the pencil for a second and it actually smooths it out. But I try to avoid that recently because I want to get more efficient with my drawing ability, and that is really a crutch. If you want to do a curve, for example, a more intricate curve, you probably won't be able to do it with a smoothing feature. So it is a crutch, but you can use it sometimes, especially for the ellipsis, but also you must know the perspective of the ellipsis as well. Learn your fundamentals. And if you also want to become more efficient, use that tool less often. I really recommend using a fine liner on the paper and just getting used to drawing these lines. It really helps in the sketchbook. Now, when doing the line work, I really want you to think about the line weight. And most of the line weight actually really depends on the overlaps, lighting, and the atmospheric perspective. I would say there are 4 line weights. It is thin, medium, thick, and the cast shadows. Thin lines are actually used for the plane changes that are inside of the drawing, and for minor details, and also for the objects that are further away, where the atmospheric perspective comes into play. Also, it can be used for the places where light is hitting the most. Medium lines are usually used for the silhouette lines, the boundaries of the drawing. Thicker lines are actually used for overlaps, meaning whenever you have a form that is overlapping another form, in that case, you do want to thicken the line where the overlapping form meets. Like in this case, it would be this part and this part of my hand because it overlaps my other hand. Also, it can be used for the lines that are in the shadow side of the drawing. And cast shadows are the fully black spots that are basically the shadows that are being cast from one form to another, and they create a hard edge shadow on that another form. Adding cast shadows to the drawing adds a lot of readability and contrast. Also, I do want to mention that if you want to do a painting, you don't need that much care with your line work. This is more for a line art illustrations, so just keep that in mind. Alright, the next phase in my process is the solid color masking. Okay, so after I'm done with the line work, I usually do a full color mask of the whole drawing. I know that there is a drag and drop feature in Procreate that you can actually drag the color while using the line work as reference, and it should mask it, but as far as I work, I use the 6B pencil, and I usually am very flowy and natural with my strokes, so I usually don't enclose my drawing fully. And whenever I want to do this kind of feature, I usually create a really bad looking mask that is very inaccurate, so I still have to work around it anyway, or I don't create a mask at all and just it doesn't work at all. So yeah, I use the lasso tool for filling the colors. Make sure that you select color fill and select the color that you want to fill. I feel that lasso tool is way easier on my wrist, and it's actually way faster for me compared to using a brush for this particular case. As far as picking the first color, I usually just pick what I believe that will be the most dominating color in the whole image. But basically you can use any color if you don't know what you want to use yet, and you will be able to change it later, which is really easy, and that's why I really like this kind of workflow. After that, I create another layer with a clipping mask, and I use a new layer for each color, all as clipping masks on the first big color layer. This basically enables you to change any color of any object whenever you want, and I will show you later how to do this. As far as choosing the colors go, I usually try to go with less saturated colors first, and I can saturate them later if I want to. Also, I do try to have the color theory in mind, trying to use the colors that work well with each other. I do recommend Artwatt beginner painting course if you want to learn a little bit more about color theory. After I'm done with doing solid colors, I move on to the cell shading. I add a multiply layer on the top, but before the line work, and I actually use it also as a clipping mask. And again, I actually use a lasso tool with a color fill. Again, it's way easier on my wrist, and I find it way more accurate actually. The basic premise here is that I try to think where the light is coming from, and then I basically draw the line of the terminator, the place where light and dark meets. Now again, beginner painting course really gonna help you if you want to learn this particular thing. Now the color that I choose for the shadows is actually dependent on the color scheme. Now please avoid using just black for this, always use a little bit of a hue. The shadow color really depends on where your character or whatever object you're painting is and what kind of lighting it is. It always depends on the light and the objects surrounding it. If there's a sunny day outside and the sky is really clear and blue, the blue will be also in the shadows. Now I actually usually just leave it with the first cell shading pass, and that is mostly it, but you can always render more. The first step would probably be to use a smudge tool and try to soften the edges that needs to be softened. And after the shadow pass, I actually create another layer, another multiply layer, and I use a soft airbrush at this point. I usually use the same color that I used for the shadows, but if I want to play around with the colors a little bit, I try to change up the hue. Not the value, but the hue. Now I usually use the biggest size of the soft airbrush, and I just very gently brush it from the side that there is the most dark. And this creates a really good contrast and focal point in my opinion. And that's the gradation that usually the cell shading drawings actually lack really easily. And I just actually love this look personally. I think it really looks cool. Then I usually create another normal layer on the top and add a little bit of the highlights. I try to use the color that is very near to white, but I try to not use the full white because there is never, almost ever full white in reality. And I actually try to restrain myself from adding a lot of highlights. If you want, you can actually use color dodge or add layers or hard light even for this, but it depends then on what color you choose if you want to create some different effects. After that, I just basically start tweaking around, starting to work with colors, and this is where the layer structure really helps, because you can just pick the layer, go to the options, and if you want to change the hue, you can do it. If you want to saturate the actual color, you can also do it. If you want to create another gradation maybe on the particular color, you can actually set the layer on alpha mask and then maybe use the soft brush and create a gradation on it. And this is really powerful workflow, because if a client asks for you to do color variations, for example, for a particular design, you can do it really quickly. At this point, I just do some final tweaks. I check out the colors, maybe wait for 1 day to pass, take a look at the design with my fresh eyes. Also, maybe if you want to, you can do the flip horizontal feature where you take a look if there's anything wrong with your drawing. And it's actually probably way better to do it in the rough stages of the drawing than now. So yeah, after some final tweaks, the drawing is basically done. Alright, so now let's talk about Tradigital process. What's the difference? So basically, instead of doing anything until the coloring phase, you basically do it in the sketchbook, in the paper, with a fine liner, or with any medium you want. If you want, you can use pencil. If you want, you can use the ballpoint pen. But in this particular style, I do really recommend you to use a fine liner or at least a ballpoint pen, because it will be way easier to separate the background, white background, from the black. I also want to touch a little bit on the fine liners. I fell in love with this fine liner, and also lately I found this one. I'm not sure what type of brand it is. I just found it in a local drawing store, and I love it so much because it has a really good range. And to me, it is way better to use a one piece of equipment that has a wider range than to use a lot of different size fine liners, which is also cool, but I just like this because it's way more efficient. I actually use the pencil for doing the rough stages of the drawing, eraser as well. Really simple eraser, but I need to get that kneaded eraser, but I just didn't find it yet. Sometimes I use the micron pens, fine liners. I do have this black liner, really big brush for really quick big cast shadows. It's way more efficient to use this one for the big cast shadows. I do have some other brushes, but I mainly use these. Sometimes if I want to do very thin hatching lines, I actually use this, which is 0.1 Faber-Castell Echo Pigment Fine Liner. And I just usually use the sketchbook. In this case, I just found a really cheap sketchbook on Pepco. I don't know if you know that shop or you do have it in your near vicinity or whatever. And the part of this sketchbook that I really actually don't like is that one page is I really like this type of texture, but the other side is really like watercolory, and it's very rough, and because of that it's really hard to actually draw with a fine liner on it. So for example, the Sakura micro pens don't really actually even work on this, but the pen that I showed you that I really like actually really works well even on this surface, so it's fine. I also want to show you some other sketchbooks. I do love these A4 hardcover black sketchbooks. The paper on here is usually kind of thick. I think this brand is Fabiano. It's not really expensive. I think I bought it for like 10 euros or something. And it's also actually takes a really long time to fill these up. I bought this particular sketchbook for 3 euros. I think, yeah, it's really cheap in Pepco. Or you can actually find Tiger stores that actually do have some sketchbooks as well. So I found this horizontal sketchbook. It has 80 sheets, and I bought it on Tiger. I haven't filled it up yet. It's a new sketchbook. The paper here is kind of actually really thin, but it cost me like, I don't know, like 5 euros probably, so not that much. The thing that I really hate about Tiger is that they don't have the vertical ones. To me, like, having a vertical sketchbook is way cooler than having this. So, I don't know. But yeah, as far as picking sketchbooks, I kind of like to go towards a more cheap versions. And that really allows me to be less afraid when drawing and make more decisions. Decision-making process is really important. That's just the basic advice that I can give you. I actually do love to use fine liners with the paper, and it's sometimes actually it's even easier for me to use it because I'm so used to it, and I actually don't need to do these like very quick strokes that I have to do with 6B pencil on the iPad. So actually the process can be faster even and more efficient, which I like. The downside is that if you make a mistake with a fine liner, then you will probably ruin it and you will need to do it all over again from scratch. But is it really a downside? Because you will practice more, you know? And if you do like tiny mistakes, you can always remove the lines that you don't want in the iPad. But once you do the final line work in your sketchbook or on the paper that you want to use, remember to erase all the pencil marks with an eraser, unless you didn't even use the underdrawing and just went straight in with a fine liner, which in that case, you're an absolute freak. I do respect you, my friend. And then you do have two options, at least that I am aware of. Either you take a picture with your phone or you scan it with a printer. And usually I'm kind of lazy, so I just take the picture with my phone. I crop the picture, I try to add a lot of contrast to basically make it black and white almost. I tested the scanning feature with my $30 cheap printer, and yeah, I guess it's a little bit better, but not that much, so I'm not fully sure. If you're more knowledgeable on how to get a better resolution file out of this, please let me know in the comments down below, because I really do want to know. So once you do have the image, open up the Procreate and add the image. Make sure the line work and the background is fully black and white. If it's not, go to the curves feature and try to add a little bit more contrast. You can just roughly cut and paste the drawing with a lasso tool to remove all the other background that is not needed and paste it on another layer. Okay, now pay attention, because this part in Procreate in particular is unintuitive as hell. Pay attention. Copy the line work layer, create a new layer and drop black color on it. On that new layer that is black, create a mask, not a clipping mask, a simple mask. Now paste the contents of the mask, then invert the mask, and then merge it together. And boom! You do have the line work without the background. Now the cool thing about this is that now you can actually change the color of the line work to whatever you want. You can use all the settings, the saturation, the hue, or you can just alpha lock it and just use a big brush and just change the line work layer to whatever you want. You can leave some of it, you can erase it, you can do whatever you want with it. And you wouldn't be able to do this if you would just use the multiply layer on the sketch and wouldn't have done the earlier process that I mentioned. Now at this point, with the line work, try to not use any of the transform features, because the Procreate engine actually makes the image more pixelated the more you transform it, so try to avoid that. Now, if you have done some mistakes with a fine liner, you can actually now just take the eraser and remove the mistakes, or you can actually try to draw some more with a similar type of brush. In this case, 6B pencil is actually kind of similar to my fine liner. So yeah, basically at this point, you just do basically the same things, starting with doing solid color masks, creating the color layers, doing the shading, and so on. That's basically it. Now, I do want to mention that if you're struggling and if you hit a roadblock at any point of the process, try to step away and do a study. Not only you will also learn way better this way, because now you have a problem to solve in your mind and you will pay attention way more and apply what you learn. So yeah, just keep that in your mind, that you can always step back. That will keep your mind at ease and will reduce the stress in this whole process basically. That's pretty much it. Again, thank you so much for watching. Check out ArtWatt. There's a special discount. If you click my personal link, you will be able to support this channel without any extra cost to you and actually get a better deal. So yeah, win-win in my opinion. Check out my music. I am a singer, songwriter, rapper. I make music. I have some music videos that you can check out on YouTube. I have some music in Spotify. So yeah, feel free to check it out and let me know what you think of them. Check out my art Instagram, where I post my art basically. Yeah, give it a follow. That would be really cool. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel, because there are more videos coming, and there are actually a lot of videos on the channel as well already. And also check out these 10 drawing mistakes video that I actually did before. Yeah, have a nice day. Stop doom scrolling, get to drawing, and bye bye.